So now at this point, we learned about using if. Let's now use this knowledge to add more if statements. Because here in this application, when the user chooses deposit or withdrawal, we might want to validate the value that has been entered by the user. We, for example, might want to make sure that no negative amount is deposited or withdrawn. And for that, we can go to the place where we have that deposit code. And then after getting that user input, before updating the account balance, we could insert another nested if statement here. Nested because it's inside of another else if statement. And here we could check if the deposit amount is maybe smaller or equal than 0. So that's another operator you can use in such conditions. You already saw the equality operator. You also have the inequality operator, which we didn't use yet, but which would be this operator. And you also have the smaller than, greater than, and smaller than or equal or greater than or equal operators. And here I want to check if the chosen amount is smaller than or equal to 0, which means that it's an invalid amount. And in that case here, we might want to output an error message with println, where we say invalid amount must be greater than 0. Something like this. I now also want to make sure that this code thereafter doesn't execute though. So at the moment, where we always end the application after performing the chosen task, we can simply return here. Now I'm not returning a value here, instead I just have an empty return keyword here without any value thereafter. And the main function indeed does not return any values. We have not defined any return types here. But you can always add a naked return keyword like this, because that will then simply make sure that no other code thereafter gets executed. Because that's the special thing about return. It stops the execution of the function where it's used, and no other code thereafter is executed. So this code here won't execute because we return here. And we only do that if the deposit amount is invalid. Therefore here, with this extra if check added, we can run this application again, choose deposit money, and now let's say we want to deposit -10, which does make a lot of sense. If we enter this, we get our error message here, and the program ends, as intended. So just as we're checking for an invalid amount here when the user wants to deposit something, we can also do that here if the user wants to withdraw an amount. So again, after getting the user input, before updating the balance, we can add this check and check the withdrawal amount, like this. But in case of withdrawing, we also might want to perform a second check in addition to this check. So not with else if, so not as an alternative to this check, but in addition. And here we could now check if the withdrawal amount is maybe greater than the account balance, which would mean that we're trying to withdraw more than we have in our account. And that, of course, shouldn't be allowed. In that case, we could then output println invalid amount, you can't withdraw more than you have. And I also want to return thereafter, so that again, no other code executes if we make it into this if statement. And therefore with this added here, with these two if statements added here, we can again run this code, choose withdraw money, and if I choose a negative amount, I get this error message regarding my invalid amount. If I instead choose an amount that's higher than my account balance, like 2000, I get that other error message. But of course, if I do enter a valid amount like 200, it works and the balance is updated, as you can see here. So that all works as intended.